Hello everyone, and thank you for purchasing my pattern. I have made this video tutorial to show you how some steps are worked in the pattern, but please do not get confused. I'm going to show almost all the steps together. This does not mean that they're worked that way in the pattern as well. You will follow the pattern, the written pattern, step by step as I have written it, and I'm going to have minute stamps in the written pattern to see which part the steps that I'm going to work refer to, okay? And this is only going to happen once in the written pattern just to see how the steps are being made, okay? So I want to show how we work the front posts and the back posts in the center of the shawl. I want to show how the bubbles are made because the whole shawl is made with double crochet. So in order for the bubble to be created, we have to work the stitches with trebles, okay? And I also want to show how the back post double crochet are worked after the row with the bubbles. Basically how the back post double crochets worked around the bubble, because you have probably not worked such stitch before, okay? Now the first part of the pattern is the beginning where we only work double crochet. Now then when we work the front posts and the back posts are to create those outlines over here. Then the first part of the bubbles is to create a zigzag, okay? First we're gonna have the peak of the zigzag, okay? Then it's going to open a little bit in the next row, and then it's going to open more in the next row. Then again the two rows of the front posts and the back posts where we worked outlines and just plain double crochet. Then we have rows of bubble stitch, but not creating zigzag, just plain the bubble stitch, okay? Then we have plain rows of double crochet, and then again we have a part that we work the bubble stitch and we create zigzag again, but this time the zigzag is getting bigger, the open part is getting wider. So in the first row you're gonna have just the one bubble created, then it opens up a little bit, a little more, and then the end row. Then again the outlines with the front post and back posts, rows of plain double crochet, then rows with the bubble stitch, same as up here, then rows of regular double crochet, then front post and back post to create the outlines. And then the last time that we're going to work the zigzag, it's going to be even wider, okay? So you start with your peak of the zigzag, then opens a little more, little more, little more, and this is the widest part of the zigzag. So every time that we work the zigzags in the pattern, it gets wider and wider. Then regular rows of double crochet, your outlines, and we finish the shawl with the bubble stitch as we have done in previous rows, and we're going to finish it with making the ribbing with front post double crochet and back post double crochet, okay? So let's see how the important steps are being worked, and you're going to find those timestamps in the written pattern. I have started with a few rows just to have a bigger piece, so the steps that I'm going to make are going to be easier to see, okay? So let's say that now we're in the row where we have to start working the front post double crochet. Just in case you have never worked a front post double crochet, so let me start the row where we always start with an increase. We always chain 2 and we always work the double crochet in the very first stitch. Now, just in case you have never worked a front post double crochet, wrap the yarn around your hook once and put your hook from the right side of the stitch, from the front to the back, from the right side of the stitch, and take your hook out again on the left side of the stitch. So we're basically wrapping our hook around the double crochet and we're pulling it outwards. That's a front post double crochet. Now take the yarn and pull it under the stitch. Take the yarn, pull through the first 2 loops. Take the yarn and pull through the last 2 loops. This was a front post double crochet. Okay. Again, put your hook from the front to the back on the right side of the stitch and take your hook out again from the left side of the stitch. Take the yarn, pull it under the stitch, and now work the steps that you would normally do for a double crochet. Yarn through the first 2 loops, yarn through the last 2 loops. So I'm going to keep working my front posts up until I reach this point over here where I'm going to work a front post double crochet, the 3 front post double crochet around the last stitch before the increase. Okay, I have worked front post double crochet going upwards. Now you will realize in the pattern that in every row that I work either front post double crochet or back post double crochet, I never work in the chain 2 space where we normally crochet to double crochet, chain 2 to double crochet. What I always do, and this is just to keep having this line created from the front post and the back post, I want to keep having it up until the center of my shawl as well, because if not, the line would stop here. I would have the center, the increase over here, and then the line would start creating from this stitch going down as well. And well, for my shawl, I didn't really like to have that looking like that. So what I do is, instead of working in the center, in the last stitch over here, in the last double crochet, instead of just working 1 front post, I work 3 front posts around the stitch. So what I do is I put my hook from the front to the back in the right side of the stitch, out to the front again on the left side, okay, and I'm going to work 3 front post double crochet. One. Again, do the same thing from the front to the back, out to the front again around the same stitch, and work your 2nd front post double crochet. Again, do the same thing, okay, from the front to the back, out to the front again, and work your front post double crochet. And this is how it'll look around your stitch. Another way to do this, well, we're going to work the same exact steps in the same exact way, but if it'll help you to see it better, what we're basically doing is, if you turn, what we're basically doing is we're putting our hook under the double crochet and we're working 3 double crochet under the stitch. It's the same exact thing, but it's another perspective on seeing how the stitches are being worked. So this is our double crochet, okay, so put your hook under the stitch and just go on and work 3 double crochet under it. 1, again under the stitch, 2, and 3. I worked the same exact steps in the same exact way. I just showed a different way on how to look at the stitch if it's easier for you to see it that way. Okay, so 3 front post double crochet around the last stitch, and this is how it's always going to be worked when we repeat this step in the following rows. Now, once you work the 3 front post double crochet, chain 2, we skip the chain 2 space, we do not work in here, and what I mentioned is we want to work around the first double crochet going downwards, but from the left side of the stitch, because if I just go ahead and work 3 front post double crochet like this, I work the 3 front posts, what will happen to my shawl? It will start twisting like this, the corner down the center, okay? And I do not want that to happen. So what I basically am going to do is I'm going to put my hook from the left side, and I'm going to put from the front to the back of the left side of the stitch out to the front again on the right side, and I'm going to work my 3 front post double crochet. The easier way to see it, as we just did over here, is to put your hook under the double crochet and work 3 stitches going up on the post. Okay, here we went down on the post of the double crochet. When we put our hook from the left side, it's as if we're going upwards. So what we're going to do, okay, yarn over once, turn your work counterclockwise, put the hook under the double crochet, and work your 3 front post. Sorry, let me do it again. Okay, turn your work counterclockwise, put your hook under the double crochet and work 1, 2, again under the double crochet, 3. And this is how your work will look like in this side that you're working, and this is how it's going to look in the good side. Okay, now I'm going to keep working my front post double crochet going downwards, and when it's time to see how to work the back post, I'm going to turn my video back on. Now I have started the row with the increase, okay, and I want to show how a back post double crochet is being worked. So when you work a back post, wrap the yarn around your hook twice and put your hook from the back to the front on the right side of the stitch and pull the stitch to the back again from the left side. Okay, take your hook out to the back on the left side of the stitch. So we are wrapping our hook around the stitch and we're pulling it backwards like this. Now take the yarn and pull it under the stitch, and now work the steps as if you would in a regular double crochet. Take the yarn through the first 2 loops and the yarn through the last 2 loops. Again, yarn over once and work a back post double crochet around the next stitch by putting your hook from the back to the front on the right side, out to the back again on the left side, pulling backwards, and work your back post double crochet. Now once I reach up here, the last stitch, so when you work the back post double crochet, keep working 1 back post around the stitches. When you reach this spot where we had worked the 3 around the last double crochet in the previous row, just work 1 back post around this one, 1 back post double crochet around this stitch over here, and then around the last one over here before the chain 2 space. Again, we're going to work the 3 posts around it. Now I have worked the back post double crochet going upwards, and I am at the last stitch where again we're going to work the 3 stitches around it. Now the way that we're going to work this is as we do the back post double crochet. So put your hook from the back to the front on the right side of the stitch and take your hook out to the left side, so we're pulling back this stitch. Okay, take the yarn, pull it under the stitch, yarn through the first 2 loops, yarn through the last 2 loops. Now again, work the same exact steps around the same stitch, okay? 2 more times. So put your hook from the back to the front on the right side of the stitch, from the right side of the stitch, and take your hook out to the left side and work your back post double crochet. And for the third and last time, put your hook from the back to the front on the right side of the stitch and take it out to the back again and work your third back post double crochet. And this is how it's going to look. The stitches, they're going to seem as if they're twisting a little bit, but and that's because we're working 3 stitches around the same stitch. Now, an easier way to see it, because I know most people have not worked so many posts around the stitch, okay? Yarn over once and see here in the back of your work, if you put your hook under the double crochet, this is what we're basically doing when we work a back post double crochet. We're putting our hook under the stitch. It's the same exact thing if you turn your work in the front, okay? So what we're basically doing is we're working 3 double crochet going upwards around this post, okay? So that's an easier way to see it. So put your hook under the stitch, trying to find a way to show it easier. So put your hook under the double crochet and work your first stitch. Again, under the same post over here, put your hook under the same stitch and work your second double crochet. Again, under the same stitch, put your hook under the double crochet and work your third stitch. Okay, see how we have worked the 3 double crochet under the double crochet under the same post, okay? And this is how it looks. Now we're going to chain 2. Okay, and what we want to do, as I mentioned in the pattern, we want to work 3 from back post double crochet by putting our hook from the left side of the stitch. This means that I'm going to put my hook from the back to the front from the left side of the stitch, okay, and I'm going to take the hook back out from the right side. So this is how we want the 3 back post double crochet to be worked. The easy way to see it, as we just did over here, is if you turn your work clockwise this time and you're seeing the back side of the stitches. If you put your hook under the double crochet over here, we're basically going to work 3 posts going down the stitch. Okay, 3 double crochet going down this post over here. So make sure you have worked your 2 chains. Okay, we do skip the chain 2. So turn your work and put your hook under the double crochet over here, and we're going to work 3 double crochet under that stitch. One, 2 under the same stitch, 3. See how we have worked 3 double crochet under the same stitch, and this is how it looks. Okay, now keep working your back post double crochet going downwards. Okay, so around the next stitch. Around the next stitch over here. Okay, and keep working your back post going downwards. Now, if you find this difficult, if you find difficult to work 3 posts around your double crochet, either those are the 3 front posts or the 3 back posts, just work your either your 1 front post or your 1 back post up until the last stitch, and keep working in the chain 2 space your 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. Okay, I'm also going to mention it in the pattern that this is a way to skip this step. Okay, so instead of working 3 back post double crochet around the last stitch, just work 1 back post as we do around every stitch, but you have to work in the chain 2 space your 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. Okay, and then again, when going downwards, just work 1 back post double crochet around the first stitch and through the other stitches going downwards. And the same thing goes when we worked the front post double crochet. You can skip the step of working 3 front posts around the last stitch. You can just work 1 front post, but again, you have to work in your chain 2 space the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet to keep having an increase in the center of the shawl. Okay, so now the next step, when I finish working the back posts going downwards, I'm going to show you how the bubble stitch is being worked with trebles. So when we work a bubble, we yarn over twice, 1, 2, okay, put your hook in this stitch, take the yarn through the first 2 loops, take the yarn through the last 2 loops and leave the last 2 on your hook. Okay, we're going to repeat this step 4 more times. Yarn over twice, put your hook in the same stitch, take the yarn through the first 2 loops, through the last 2 loops and leave the last one on your hook. Yarn over it twice, put your hook in the same stitch, take the yarn through the first 2 loops, through the last 2 loops and leave the last one on your hook. This was the 3rd time. Okay, yarn over twice, put your hook in the same stitch, take the yarn through the first 2 loops, through the next 2 loops and leave the last one on your hook. This was the 4th time, and now we're going to do for the 5th time. Yarn over twice, put your hook in the same stitch, take the yarn through the first 2 loops, through the next 2 loops and leave the last one on your hook. So we have a total of 6 loops on our hook, 2, 4, 6, and we have worked a total of 5 stitches for our bubble stitch. Now take the yarn and pull through all of those 6 loops to secure and push the bubble to go in the other side. Okay, and after the bubble we always work the double crochet. Okay, and after the first double crochet that we work after the bubble, it's easier to pop it out. Okay, see how it looks on the other side. So this is how the bubble stitches works. Now I'm gonna work the whole row with the bubble stitch just to show the next step, how the back post double crochet are worked after the row of the bubble stitch. Okay. Okay, before I show how to work the back post around the bubble, and please do not get confused, this is not how your work is supposed to look like. I just made a bubble over here just to show how the back post and how we're supposed to work around the stitches, okay? Now, before I show you how to work the back post, I want to show how we crochet in the bubble stitch, because when we have rows of bubble stitch that follow each other, after a row of the bubble stitch, we always work a row of plain double crochet. So when we work the row of plain double crochet, this is how we're supposed to work in the stitch. So the bubble stitch has an eye right over here. This is a stitch. And also a second stitch that our bubble stitch has is this loop right over here, this top stitch over here. So when we work one double crochet in every stitch across, one of those stitches is this eye over here on top of the bubble stitch. We always work one double crochet on here, and then we always work one double crochet right over here in this stitch. Now when it's time to work the back post double crochet around the bubble stitch, please make sure that you have worked the back posts around correctly around the stitch that's right before the bubble stitch, which is not that visible. If you open your stitches over here, we have this double crochet, which is the one that we work right after the bubble stitch, and it's hiding right over here. So make sure you work a back post double crochet around that stitch, and around the bubble stitch, this is how we're going to work the back post. So what we want to do is, I'm going to see how we worked earlier in this eye over here, in this stitch, and in this loop right up here. This is where we're going to work the back post. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hook from the back to the front. Oops. From the back to the front in this stitch right over here, and out to the back again, up in this loop up here. So this is how it's going to look when we work a back post double crochet around the bubble stitch. Okay, so yarn over once and put your hook from the back to the front on this stitch that's on the top right of the bubble stitch, and out to the back again in this loop right here in the top. Take the yarn, pull it under those stitches. Take the yarn, pull through the first 2 loops. Take the yarn through the last 2 loops. And this is how it's going to look when you work the back post double crochet around the bubble. So I'm going to show one more time where your hook is supposed to go. So we're going from the back to the front in this stitch, and out to the back again in this stitch. So from the back to the front, right over here, and out to the back again, right over here. Do not be afraid to push back your bubble. If it goes back, just pop it out again, okay? That's not a mistake. Just go ahead and fix your bubbles if it goes back from when working the back post double crochet. It's pretty easy. Once you do 1 or 2 stitches, it's going to be easy to tell how to crochet. Again, make sure you do not miss the stitch that's right before the bubble. And then your back post around the bubble stitch. Okay, so these were the important steps that I wanted to show. I'm going to include the minute stamps in the pattern, okay, and I'm going to include them only once, just to see how the steps are being worked, and then you can just keep going back if you can't understand some steps. I hope you found this video helpful. and I thought it would be better to make it into a video because I could not show the steps in pictures. I usually include pictures, but it was not easy to show how and where to put your hook around the stitches. So thanks for watching, and thanks for purchasing my pattern.